They got their asses kicked by the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think the most frustrating part, and I'm going to open with Celtics, I think the most frustrating part about the Celtics getting their asses kicked by the Milwaukee Bucks is that Kyrie Irving, their best player, was complete garbage for really this entire series. I mean, he was good in Game 1. The Celtics as a whole were good in Game 1. They won Game 1, and then they lost 4 straight. Kyrie Irving, in the 4 losses, these are staggering numbers, all right? These are embarrassing, horrible numbers for Kyrie Irving. Let me give you these numbers. In the 4 losses that the Celtics had, losing this second-round series in 5 games, losing 4 straight after winning Game 1. In the 4 losses, Kyrie Irving was 25 for 83 from the field. That's 30% from the field. 25 for 83 in the 4 losses. Also in those 4 losses, 5 for 27 from behind the three-point line. He only hit 5 3-pointers. Like, think about that. Kyrie Irving hit 5 3-pointers in 4 straight games, which were 4 straight losses. 5 total, not 5 a game, 5 total in the 4 losses. 5 for 27 from the three-point line. That's 19% from 3 for Kyrie Irving. 30% from the field and 19% from 3. The reason the Celtics are done right now is because Kyrie Irving, their best player, was horrible. Horrible. He was horrible. And, you know, Kyrie Irving coming out of his mouth really all year long was, you know, let's see what we are in the playoffs. It's all about the playoffs. The regular season doesn't matter, he said. He said, this is all about the playoffs. And we all know what Kyrie Irving can be. We saw how good he was in the playoffs when he was with Cleveland. And I think someone like myself, you know, listened to all the things Kyrie said all year long, and it was frustrating to listen to Kyrie all year long. It was frustrating. And he was a tough guy to root for. But if you listen to me, you know what I always said about Kyrie is that at the end of the day, it is about championships in this town. And if Kyrie can play the way we know he's capable of playing in the playoffs, then they have a chance to win a championship. But so I gave Kyrie kind of a free pass for some of the things he said in the regular season. Though free pass is strong. I mean, I did criticize him a lot, but the reason I wasn't running him, here's the thing. I was not one of these people that was running Kyrie Irving out of town. I wasn't. I was not running Kyrie Irving out of town because I knew how good he could be in the playoffs. But then we get to the playoffs, and you get to the second round, and he sucked. He was horrible. I just gave you the numbers. Kyrie was terrible, and he is the reason the Celtics have been eliminated. It's as simple as that. Don't overthink it. You know, don't get into what Brad Stevens could have done differently with his lineups, with his rotation, or, you know, where was Horford defensively after Game 1? He was so good on Giannis Antetokounmpo after Game 1. Where was he after that? You know, I don't think of anything else. This is a superstar-driven league. Kyrie Irving is the Celtics superstar, and he only hit 5 3-pointers in the 4 losses that they had, the 4 straight losses. An embarrassing performance in those 4 losses in this series as a whole for Kyrie Irving. And if you had told me he was going to play like this in this series and be the reason the Celtics were eliminated from the playoffs in the second round, if you had told me that 2 months ago, I would have been running Kyrie Irving out of town. Because the only reason Kyrie Irving, in my opinion, the only reason people want him around at this point, if you still want him around, is because you thought that in the playoffs, he'd be the guy to take this team on his back and get him over whatever hump they needed to get over. And that hump was getting past the East Finals and getting into the NBA Finals. And even at some point, here in the next couple of years, getting an NBA championship. But, I mean, it was evident in Game 5 last night on Wednesday night that Kyrie Irving, he just couldn't hit anything. He couldn't hit anything. He could have been standing on the beach and wouldn't be able to put that thing in the ocean. That's how bad Kyrie Irving was. And it gives someone like myself just a whole different opinion of this guy and the future in this town with this team. Because I did tell you during the season, I want the Celtics to re-sign Kyrie. I want him back. Because I know how good he is in the playoffs. But if he's no good in the playoffs, then what good is he with this team? Clearly, this team had issues, and you heard it all come out after the game. The postgame told the entire story of this team. And Brad Stevens was pretty good with the postgame. But, I mean, he's not throwing anyone under the bus. Kyrie didn't really throw anyone under the bus. Kyrie actually went all, and I'm going to play Kyrie for you in a minute, but Kyrie went mostly praise for the Milwaukee Bucks. But it was a little too much praise there. It was, mind-boggling to kind of listen to Kyrie. I was sort of begging for some humility from Kyrie Irving, right? Some, him coming out saying, this is on me. I only hit 5 3-pointers in the 4 losses we had. What? Insane that you don't get up on that podium when the season's over and kind of put this on yourself because it's on Kyrie. Instead of knocking himself or anyone else on his team, he just kind of praised the Milwaukee Bucks. But then you get to Rozier and Jaylen Brown. I don't have Jaylen Brown audio, but I did watch the postgame of him. He was kind of all over the place with things he was saying. But one thing Jaylen Brown said was similar to something I think he said earlier in the year, was that, the young players and the veterans, we all learned something from this season. And he's like, we all learned something. And so I think that's him kind of throwing the veterans under the bus once again, something he did earlier in the year. And then you get Terry Rozier, who Terry Rozier really told the whole story in like a minute clip. And I might as well play that for you first. Here is Terry Rozier after the game. He's sitting in his locker. And he's being asked questions. And I'll just let you listen. Terry Rozier after Game 5 in the Celtics season coming to an end.
It didn't go the way we all wanted. But, I thank God for my family and my boys back at the crib. They kept me level-headed all year. Because I've been dealing with some shit. And, I feel like we still all had that one goal. It wasn't easy on Coach dealing with a lot of guys that want to be great, trying to get there. So, like I said, it's been tough. It's been a tough year, especially for me. But it ain't about me. That's why I don't.
All right. So there's one part of it. I think one part that jumps out obviously is the part about the coach had a tough job trying to manage a team in which you had a lot of guys wanting to be starting players, really wanted to be star players. And that's the issue. You go back to last year, Rozier, Jaylen Brown, Tatum. They took this team to Game 7. They took LeBron to the brink of elimination. They took him to Game 7 of the East Finals without Kyrie, without Gordon Hayward. Those kids want to be rewarded for that, not just for basketball purposes, but you got to take into account future contracts and the money that all of a sudden someone like maybe Terry Rozier loses when you return the next season. Irving comes back, Hayward comes back, and you got to sit your ass on the bench and play a very limited role, especially in the playoffs, especially in a playoff series in the second round where Kyrie Irving sucked. Rozier credited the coach. So that's telling. That really tells the story of the season. And then Rozier continues.
Complaining that it was just tough. Just was tough, dealing with all the talent we had, and different guys want to be in the limelight, guys already in the limelight, shit that it's just been a lot. But I feel like we all can step back, and I think that's the time right now. When we're going on vacation, we just relaxing and we get to reflect on the season.
All right, you reflect on the season all you want, but you just told us. You had guys that were in the limelight last year, like him talking about himself, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and then you had guys who were coming back and wanted the limelight again. And what's the limelight? Again, the limelight is just starting jobs, starting roles. Opportunities to get the big minutes, which give you opportunities to then get the big contract. I think at some point this whole thing does come back to the president of basketball operations, Danny Ainge. I'm not going to... It's tough to crush a guy that's recovering from mild heart attack right now, but let's be honest. I mean, the team that he put together gave him a heart attack. Kyrie Irving gave him a heart attack. And it's like at some point, the guy who puts the team together, and don't say, oh, you can't just come up with this now and say that there's a problem with too much talent. No, I think a lot of us in this town were wondering how this was going to work coming in because of where last year's group went. And Rozier, Jaylen Brown having to maybe take a back seat. You know, how were they going to react to that? And what if, as we saw, the season didn't go as expected? I think we all expected when you add Irving and Hayward to the mix to a group that went to Game 7 of the East Finals, to an Eastern Conference that no longer had LeBron James, you no longer had to go through LeBron. I think we all thought, we all kind of penciled the Celtics into the NBA Finals, didn't we? That's why this is so frustrating. That's why this is a failure. The Celtics, this is a failure. This is a failure. Terry Rozier just told the story. He credited the coach for having to deal with a team that was tough to deal with because you had guys that wanted the spotlight and you had guys that had the spotlight that wanted to remain in it from last year. But once Irving and Hayward got back, they couldn't all have the spotlight. And, it just, Rozier summed it up right there. But because his team failed at the end of the day, they should be disappointed, right? Shouldn't they be disappointed? Well, Kyrie Irving says after the game, this is no time for disappointment. Here's a little of Kyrie after the season had come to an end and after the Celtics had failed and after Kyrie was the reason that this Celtics team ended up failing in the second round. Here's Kyrie.
I mean, truth be told, it's no time to be disappointed. I think that, you take your lessons, you take your ass whooping that they handed us, and you move on. It's a basketball journey. Obviously, you want to keep playing, but they put a halt to that, and they deserve this series. They played like they wanted it, and I'm looking forward to seeing them going in the Eastern Conference Finals and playing their next opponent.
So wait a minute. It's just right there. I was watching this live, and I'm like, man, and going into this press conference, you knew he was going to say something, right? I mean, Kyrie Irving has always said something that we react to in sort of a negative way in this town. He's been doing it all year long. So you knew there was going to be something. But I was begging for a little humility from the guy. From a guy that went, like I just said, 5 for 27 from the three-point line in 4 straight games. You wanted a little humility from him. The guy that sat there and said, I'm going to take some days off at the end of the regular season because it's not about the regular season, it's about the playoffs. And then when you get to the playoffs and we expect playoff Kyrie, you don't get that. I don't know what that was. That was a Kyrie Irving that couldn't hit anything. That was a Kyrie Irving that, people, I tweeted this out last night. People questioning now whether or not Kyrie Irving wants to stay in Boston. I'm questioning whether or not Kyrie Irving even wants to play basketball anymore because it felt like last night in Game 5 that he didn't want to play the game of basketball any longer. That's how he was out there shooting. And so I was asking and begging before this post-game press conference last night, begging for a little humility from this guy. Like, hey, I sucked. This is on me. This team was looking up to me to come into this situation this year after sitting out last year with an injury in the playoffs. They went to Game 7 of the East Finals. They're expecting me to get them at least into the finals. And I didn't get the job done. I failed. And here are my numbers. I sit here every night and I look at the box score. But even though I'm begging for that type of humility, I kind of had the feeling he wasn't going to give it to us. Mainly because when you go back to the previous game, Game 4, here's what Kyrie Irving said after... this is wild, by the way. After Game 4. When they went down 3-1. They lose both games at the TD Garden, but this was after Game 4. When was this? On Monday night. Here's what Kyrie Irving had to say after Game 4.
The expectations on me are going to be sky high, and I try to utilize their aggression against them and still put my teammates in great positions while still being aggressive. I'm trying to do it all. So, for me, the 22 shots, I should have shot 30. It really, I'm not great of a shooter. So I think that just the consistency of just going at it.
Oh, man, I can't even listen to it anymore. He says, I have to do it all. I'm such a great shooter. I should have shot 30. So I should have known. We weren't going to get that. We weren't going to get him last night saying, I sucked. Showing that humility. We weren't going to get that from him. I was begging for it. We weren't going to get that. What we got instead was a guy who said, and I'll play it again for you because you need to hear it, is that right now, this is moments after the season's over. He says, no, there's no time for disappointment. I can't believe it. Here it is again.
I mean, truth be told, it's no time to be disappointed. I think that, you take your lessons, you take your ass whooping that they handed us, and you move on. It's a basketball journey. Obviously, you want to keep playing, but they put a halt to that, and they deserve this series. They played like they wanted it, and I'm looking forward to seeing them going in the Eastern Conference Finals and playing their next opponent.
Looking forward to it. Again, another thing. Not only does he say there's no time for disappointment, well, first of all, go back and try to tell that to the rest of your teammates. Because I watched the Al Horford press conference when he was standing in the locker room in front of his locker after the game, and he seemed to be pretty disappointed. You should be disappointed. It's okay to be disappointed after you fail, and especially after you're the reason that your team fails. A normal reaction. He said something else in his press conference where he's like, I'm just trying to get home safely and see my family and decompress like a normal human. Well, normal humans would be disappointed in a situation that you're currently in a situation that you're currently in because you sucked. Go in that locker room and ask me if people are disappointed. And try to tell everybody in that locker room on that Celtics team, that group of kids that you called out all year, that was in Game 7 of the East Finals last year, try to tell them that losing in the second round in 5 games, try to tell them that this is no time for disappointment. That's a joke. I don't understand that. And then, right afterwards, saying, you know what, I'm looking forward to watching Milwaukee in the next round. What? What do you mean you're looking forward to watching Milwaukee? I was looking forward to watching the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. This loss wasn't even really, this loss was, when did he talk, Kyrie? 20 minutes after the game ended? I mean, this game wasn't even finished for 30 minutes. This was 20 minutes after the game. He's saying, this is no time for disappointment. I'm looking forward to seeing Milwaukee in the East Finals. What are you talking about? Here's more Kyrie.
It was a great opponent for me to play against for the rest of my career because I know I won't forget something like this. And the taste of feeling defeat in this type of style, being down 1-4, I haven't felt. So for me, it's just moving on to the next thing. And just seeing where that ends up.
All right, we'll see where that ends up. But Kyrie continued after another question to praise the Bucks. Here's Kyrie again on the Bucks.
And like I said, I give credit when credit's due. Giannis is an unbelievable player. He's been doing unbelievable things this year, as well as Chris. And they feeling very well. They're a great, well-run team. So I'm glad that we got to feel this in the eyes of looking at a great team like that.
I'm glad we got to feel this. I don't know if Kyrie was just making it a point to not knock his own team, that he said, I'm just going to praise the Bucks, and whatever comes out, comes out. But I don't know if in the back of the head he had this little voice that was like, don't call out anyone on your own team, because then that'll be really bad. It'll be worse than praising the Bucks. And maybe that voice was so loud in the back of his head saying, don't knock your own team. Don't criticize your own group. Maybe that voice was so loud that he couldn't even understand what he was saying about the Bucks. I'm glad this happened. Can't wait to watch the Bucks. There's no time for disappointment. That's a great team. I mean, it tells the story. That with the Rozier stuff, it tells the story. Kyrie Irving The Kyrie Irving Celtics, if you had one word to describe them, what would it be? What word would you use to describe the Kyrie Irving Celtics this season? I got a word for you. Hotless. This group was hotless. I mean, and it was that hotless tone that they set was infectious. I mean, you saw Marcus Smart, he hit a dude hard at the end of the game on Milwaukee. I forget who it was. He's giving him two hands, helping him up off the court. That's not the Marcus Smart I know. The Marcus Smart I know is, maybe standing over a guy as he's on top of him, chirping at him, telling, don't you try to bring that on me. I don't care how hard I hit you. I'll hit you harder the next time. That's the Marcus Smart I know. He's helping guys up from Milwaukee at the end of this game last night. This was embarrassing. This was a total embarrassment, and it begins and it ends with their superstar. This is the league. This is the NBA. It's a superstar-driven league. If you're the superstar and you're talking all year long, this, that, and the other thing, and you don't show up and you suck, the things he was saying after, it really sums it up. So what's next? What's next for Kyrie Irving? What's next for Kyrie, who had 15 points in this Game 5, who was awful in the 4 losses in this series, who's the reason the Celtics season is over? What's next for Kyrie Irving? You heard what he had to say. No time for disappointment. Praising the Bucks. The good thing is he didn't knock his own team, right? But at the same time, it's like, you should be disappointed. Everyone in that organization is disappointed. You didn't really put anything on yourself. The fact that he didn't come out and say, this is on me. I was horrible. I got to be better than this. You go back to the audio I played you after Game 4. He's like, I'm trying to do it all. And I'm a great shooter. I should have taken 30 shots. Like, take all the shots you want. How about you start hitting some? Is that a crazy concept? Look, like I told you all season long, I wanted the Celtics to re-sign Kyrie Irving. I did. I wanted them to re-sign Kyrie because I thought he would be somebody in the playoffs that would help this team win a championship, and that you have success in the playoffs. If Kyrie Irving came out with scoring 30, 35, hitting his three-pointers, hitting big shots. You go back to Game 4, and even in Game 5, Milwaukee in the first half, they kept the Celtics in the game. I know Marcus Morris and Marcus Smart had they did a nice job. They played a big role in Game 5 with their defensive presence, more specifically Marcus Morris. But let's be fair, Milwaukee was missing shots as much as the Celtics were in the first half. But in Game 4 and in Game 5, the Celtics should have had, what was the score of Game 5? 116-91. The Celtics should have had 135 points in Game 5. They should have had 150 points in Game 4. But they were so bad offensively that, but when you're that bad offensively, at some point you're looking for your superstar to kick it into high gear and say, hey, this is my team. This is what I wanted, right? And I sound like LeBron all year long. I sound like I want to be LeBron. I have a chance to be LeBron. Please, LeBron would have whooped this Milwaukee team. He would have. LeBron would have embarrassed this Milwaukee team. All right. He would have. And Kyrie didn't even come close. He didn't even come close. Kyrie got embarrassed. Kyrie got bitch slapped in this series. Not literally, but he did. Kyrie got bitched out in this series by the Milwaukee Bucks. That's what happened. And, I thought that it would be the other way around. And that's why I told you all year long that I want the Celtics to re-sign this guy. So now that we look at Kyrie's future, the question is, it doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't even matter what the Celtics want. It really comes down to what Kyrie wants. Because Kyrie's going to be a free agent. Right? Kyrie, based on what I heard, based on what I've seen, and based on the lack of production maybe that's the thing. That's the thing for me that changes my mind. The lack of production in the playoffs, for me, changes the way I feel about this guy. The idea that he could come out and produce and help this team win a championship was the reason I said, you got to keep him. You got to do everything you can to make him happy. You got to do everything you can if you're the Celtics to make him want to stay. Go out and get other guys. Yeah, fine. Make Kyrie want to stay. But then when you don't produce, it changes everything for me. But it's Kyrie's decision. We've heard the Knicks. I've told you, I was thinking the Lakers. Some people have said Brooklyn. I threw a poll question up on my Twitter last night, and I think most of the answers said he's going the Knicks. Most people think he's going the Knicks. A lot of people think Kyrie's going the Knicks with Kevin Durant. Here's what I'll tell you. I don't know if he's going the Knicks. I don't know if he's going the Lakers. I don't think he's going to Brooklyn. I think it's either the Knicks or the Lakers. But here's what I will tell you. He's not coming back to the Celtics. Kyrie is not coming back to the Celtics. And that's not really a crazy opinion. People have been saying that for a while. But I've been holding out hope that there would be playoff success. He would be the leader of the pack, leading this group into the East Finals, into the NBA Finals. Would love playing here. Got a taste of that championship, attitude on a team that was his own. And would love this city, would love to stay here long term, but he didn't have that success, and he just sounds like he's sour. He sounds like a guy who doesn't want to be here, and he sounded like that all season long. And when he doesn't produce in the playoffs, I'm telling you right now, Kyrie he's not coming back. He's not coming back. It doesn't matter what the Celtics want. It doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't matter what you want. It matters what Kyrie wants because he's a free agent. He is not coming back to the Celtics. He's not. He's not going to be back. He's gone. He's gone. And you know what? In fairness to Kyrie Irving, I will be fair to him right now for a moment. As frustrated as I am with him and his lack of production in the playoffs and the fact that he didn't want to really take accountability for that after in his post-game in Game 5 or Game 4. In fairness to Kyrie Irving, he never wanted to be here. Right? I mean, he never wanted to be here. Think about that. He demanded a trade out of Cleveland. You can go over the reasons for that all you want. I mean, I think he knew LeBron was leaving. I don't think him and LeBron hate each other. I really don't. I told you that from day one. I don't think they hate each other. I see the way they embrace each other after games when they're on different teams. It's like, are these two guys that hate each other? I don't think so. I think he knew LeBron was leaving. Whether his plan was to at some point join LeBron in LA, we're going to find out. Or it was just, hey, I know LeBron's leaving, so I'm going to get out first because I'm not sticking around here by myself. Kyrie gave a list of teams. Some people say that the Celtics were on that list, but most of the reports that I saw did not have the Celtics on that list. So I'm going to go with the initial report. And it did not have the Celtics on that trade list when he wanted out of Cleveland. And the Celtics trading for Kyrie Irving was a surprise to me. I think it was a surprise for a lot of people. It was a surprise for Isaiah Thomas. It was probably, though, again, in fairness to Kyrie Irving, a surprise to Kyrie Irving. Not that he got shipped out of Cleveland. He demanded the trade, but that he got shipped out of Cleveland to Boston. I don't know that he saw that coming. And in fairness to Kyrie, I don't think he ever wanted to be a Celtic. But it was better than being in Cleveland. Right? He wanted out of Cleveland. But he knew, hey, I'm a free agent. Let's suck it up. It's unfortunate he got injured. But then he comes back in a weird situation with young players that just led the team to Game 7 of the East Finals. There's some more pressure there if you're Kyrie. You add Gordon Hayward to the mix. I mean, it's just... in fairness to Kyrie, I know we're going to crush him. We're going to do this for a while, especially if he does leave. In fairness to him, I don't think he ever wanted to be here in the first place. So I'd be completely surprised. I'd be shocked if Kyrie Irving signed a long-term extension with the Celtics. I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked. I will be shocked. I don't think he's coming back. I think he's done. He's either going the Knicks or the Lakers. That's it. And I think this has been a plan of his, since he wanted out of Cleveland. I just don't think the Celtics, I know we all like to think everybody wants to play in Boston because we want them to want to play in Boston. Not everybody does. Kyrie's a weird cat. He wants specific things. He wants it his way. He's going to try to get it his way. Were the Celtics ever his way? I'm afraid it wasn't. In fairness to Kyrie, perhaps he didn't ever want to be here. And so, if he never wanted to be here, he's certainly not coming back. But let's say he had an open mind about it all. Everything that you heard Rozier say in that postgame, the things I told you that Jaylen Brown was saying in the postgame, the things that Kyrie Irving was saying in the postgame, this does not sound like a group that's going to be together next year. And I think the guy that's going to be gone is Kyrie. And you get to the coach is going to be here. And I know we could criticize the coach. I criticized the coach at times during the season when things were going on. But I think when you hear Rozier say that, the coach had a tough time, he had a tough job trying to manage all of our egos. He had a tough job. And I told you all year long, this was something that Brad Stevens, this was going to be a learning experience for him. He had never dealt with this. He had never dealt with someone like Kyrie. He was used to dealing with young players, working hard. He had never dealt with egos, where contracts get in the way, where all of a sudden the minutes he's dishing out to guys is potentially affecting another guy's contract, which then is affecting relationships in the locker room. It's funny, too. You get some quotes that are like, oh, we were brothers. We were crying together. We laughed together. I don't believe any of that. I don't believe any of that. All right? This was a tough season. And I think, and you felt this every once in a while, but especially after Game 4, certainly after Game 5, I'm sitting there going, Brad Stevens must hate this team. Like, hates this team. Hates it. And let me ask the Celtics fan, do you like this team? You certainly don't now that this season's over. And the way it sounds afterwards. But this was one of the more frustrating seasons for any team in this town that we've had to watch. Which is weird because the expectations were so high. And even when it was going bad, even when we rolled our eyes when they talked about flipping the switch in the playoffs, even someone like myself who rolled my eyes at that, I did sit back and go, well, it's possible because Kyrie is that good. So as frustrating as it was, I think there was still some hope because we knew how good Kyrie could be, and yet he wasn't good at all. In fact, he was horrible. And because of that, I sit here and go, well, why do you have to put up with a guy it's one thing if he's getting the job done for you in the playoffs. If he's not, why are you going to put up with this? So I don't think Kyrie, it's his decision. I don't think he's going to choose to come back. But let's say he is thinking about it, then it is the Celtics' decision. Because they're the one signing the check, and they're the one can give him more money and a bigger contract than anybody else. But let's just, entertain this idea that maybe Kyrie would want to come back. If you're the Celtics, I think seeing his playoff performance, a question you have to ask is, do you even want him back? Honestly. If Kyrie was scoring 35, 40 a game and they still lost this series in 6 or 7 games because Kyrie wasn't getting the help from anybody else, that's a different story. But the reason the Celtics lose is because Kyrie didn't show up. He sucked. He was horrible. And if he's going to be that bad when it matters the most, why do you have to, or why would you want to put up with his bullshit for an 82-game regular season? Why do you want to listen to this guy? You shouldn't want to listen to this guy. So if you're the Celtics, and this is another, I just think that this needs to end. Danny Ainge, what was the analogy he used? The marriage analogy? They haven't They haven't wrapped that up yet. They haven't had the wedding yet. Well, you know what? You need to back out before the wedding. If Kyrie doesn't back out, the Celtics need to back out. That's the way whatever relationship you have with Kyrie Irving, this needs to end, and it needs to end right now. You got to go your separate ways. Even if there's a little chance that Kyrie's thinking about returning, if you're the Celtics, I think you might want to say, you know what? We gave it a shot. It didn't work out. That's it. Like, I don't think, if the Celtics did have a choice, which, again, I don't think they do, but if they did, at any point, I think they have to part ways. I think they'll have to be like, we're not going to do it. Have fun in New York. Have fun in LA, wherever you're going to go. But, we get some young, talented players here. We'll have some money we free up. If I'm the Celtics, I also entertain moving Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward does not do it for me. I told you when they were going to sign him, I said, I don't understand paying Gordon. I don't understand giving him a max contract. I don't think Gordon Hayward's a max contract guy. I said that. I told you that. This is not a reaction after the fact. I'm on the record. I've said it. I've believed it. I don't consider Gordon Hayward to be a max contract guy. You needed that extra piece. You wanted to maybe overpay to bring him in. He had a relationship with the coach. I actually think the relationship that he has with the coach is a bad thing. The previous relationship with the coach is a bad thing. I actually look at that relationship he has with the coach, and I say, I think you just got to cut ties with that too. Cut ties with that too. Honestly, keep Jaylen Brown, and people will say, you know what? I'm going to tell you right now too, and it's not going to go over well in Celtics Nation. It's not going to go over well in Boston. I see people talking about Anthony Davis. So you have a team. Let me get this straight. So you have a Celtics team that underachieves, and it looks like they had no heart. I told you the word that I would use, the heart that this team had, the word I would use is hotless. This team was hotless. For a hotless team, you mean to tell me that you want to trade players in their early 20s for a player in Anthony Davis who gave up on his team a year and a half before he hit free agency? He gave up on I don't know if they just thought, they read his contract wrong and they were like, oh, we're a free agent this summer. They're not a free agent this summer. Anthony Davis is a free agent next summer. They quit in New Orleans. Anthony Davis quit on his team in New Orleans a year and a half before free agency. That's the guy that you want to add to a team that is hotless? Am I missing something with this? Everybody loves Anthony Davis. But this is something that we do, not just in this town, I think in sports in general. There's something that we do. Is that we turn players into somebody that they're not because of how much we talk about them, how much we praise them, how much we end up wanting them, how much we imagine them in our team's uniform, and we imagine all the great things that could happen, and we end up turning a player into somebody that he's not, and we forget some of the key personality traits that you need to have in a town like this to succeed. You can't be a heartless bastard who quits on your team a year and a half before free agency. I don't care how big you are. I don't care how talented you are. I don't care what your ceiling for success is or how old you are with that ceiling. You mean to tell me that you watch this Celtics team? You can honestly watch this group of Celtics. You can see this heartless group. And you can say to yourself, let's add a guy like Anthony Davis who quit on his team a year and a half before free agency. If you can say that, I don't want you running. I'm glad you don't run this Celtics team. I don't want Anthony Davis. I'm going to say it right now. I don't. I saw a guy that, Anthony Davis wants something right now. He sounds like a prima donna. What has he done? What? People forget this. What has Anthony Davis done? People play fantasy basketball, and they see all these numbers, and they watch the SportsCenter highlights, and And they get so wrapped up in that. They watch the All-Star Weekend. They see the Sprite commercials. Like, what has Anthony Davis done? Somebody tell me, what has he done? To just come out and start demanding trades a year and a half before free agency. What has he done? Don't compare this to Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett was in one city with one team with the heart of a champion, committed to bringing a championship to Minnesota for how long? 12 years? Went to the playoffs. Went to the Western Conference Finals. And then when he got into his 30s, he was like, you know what? He had a team that was suddenly rebuilding, and he wanted to go play for a contender. Don't compare Anthony Davis and his situation with Kevin Garnett, because it doesn't compare at all. Kevin Garnett did everything he could to try to get the franchise that drafted him, the franchise that he started his career with. He did everything he could to get that franchise a championship. And then when it turned out that wasn't going to happen, after years trying to get that done, he accepted a trade to a contender. What has Anthony Davis done in New Orleans? What has he done for the Pelicans? What has he tried to do for the Pelicans? I mean, that's the guy you want on the Celtics? Man. I don't. I'll tell you right now, I do not want Anthony Davis. I don't want him. I don't want him. I don't want him. Here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to let Kyrie walk. I'm willing to go back to the team that I had last year and just see. Just see what you got. Why not? Make Rozier your starting point guard. See what you got. How's that going to hurt? How is that going to hurt? Somebody tell me how that could hurt. And then you would say, well, how would adding Anthony Davis hurt that? Well, I don't know. First of all, you could trade, because you're going to have to trade a Tatum or a Jaylen Brown and maybe a Rozier. Like, you're going to have to trade those kids. And then you get Anthony Davis. Then what are we doing with Anthony Davis? You know what we're doing then? We're going, does Anthony Davis want to be here? We're doing the same thing we're doing with Kyrie. No. Enough. Don't do that. Don't do that. Get me back to last year. Bring me back to that. And you know what? If that doesn't work out, then they'll figure it out. Then we'll get there. When we get there, we'll figure that out. But bring me back to that. I want to see more of that. I'm intrigued by that. I thought Kyrie Irving would help out in the playoffs. He didn't. It's over. You can sense it all year, but now it's final. This suckfest performance from Kyrie Irving, it's done. Part ways. He's leaving anyways, but in the small chance that he might think about staying, I think you got to say, Kyrie, why don't you go to New York or LA? I think we're going to get back to what we had last year. And don't get Anthony Davis. And if you want to trade Gordon Hayward on top of it for a bag of basketballs, be my guest. Be my guest. The problem is you'll have to get a bag of basketballs that is making a max contract in order to match salaries in an NBA trade. But, my advice for the Celtics would be part ways with Kyrie. Don't get Anthony Davis. Get back to what you had last year and just see. What's the worst that could happen? Lose in the second round in Milwaukee? I mean, I don't think it can get worse. I don't think it can feel worse. Get back to that. That would be my advice. So, it's tough to stomach today because I think the expectations were so high, and my expectations for Kyrie were high, even with all the bullshit all year long. I'm saying get to the playoffs, and even after the Indiana series, after game 1 of this series, I'm sitting here telling you Milwaukee's not going to win this series. But I said that under the idea that Kyrie Irving wasn't going to be horrible for 4 straight games. And he was horrible. And the fact that there was no accountability on his part in his little 5-minute press conference, and he's praising the Bucks, he's saying he can't wait to watch Milwaukee in the next round. Oh, man. You think your locker room can't wait to watch Milwaukee in the next round? Says there's no time for disappointment? Really? Nobody in your locker room is disappointed. I mean, he just sounds like a guy that's no longer a Celtic. Sounds like a guy that is like, I'm out of here. I am done with this. Done with this. Yeah, you learn your lessons. Can't wait to watch Milwaukee. Great team. Move on. Hey, such a great team. Why don't you try to sign with them? So glad you lost to a team like Milwaukee. Why don't you go join them? Can't wait to watch them in the Eastern Conference Finals. Maybe you could play with them in the East Finals next year. No time for disappointment. No time for disappointment? I mean, there was an air ball that Kyrie Irving threw up in this game. And I tweeted at someone last night. I said, the air ball, I laughed in anger. I didn't even know that was an emotion that one human could have. Laughing in anger? I was angry. It was an angry laugh. I couldn't even do it for you right now. But in that moment, Kyrie throws up an air ball. What was it, in the third quarter? I was laughing angrily. I couldn't even, I don't even know. I felt something. Kyrie brought out emotions from us in this town this year that I didn't even know we had. And then he goes and has a post-game press conference like that, and you're just like, see ya. See ya. See ya. In fairness to Kyrie, maybe he never wanted to be here in the first place. Right? In fairness to Kyrie, his plan was always New York. In fairness to Kyrie, his plan was always LA. And, you know, in fairness, I guess to the Celtics, they gave it a shot. But now you have to know to move on. You got to move on. It's over. Kyrie and the Celtics, done. If he's with the Celtics next year, I will be shocked. I'm just telling you, it's not going to happen. He's not coming back. There's no way. And if he wants to come back, I don't even think the Celtics will want him. I don't. My advice should be just tell him it's done. It's over. Move on. We gave it a shot. Move on. You didn't want to be here originally. We gave it a shot. It didn't work out. Let's move on. We're going back to what we had last year when we went to Game 7 of the East Finals. And we're going to give that another shot. And we're going to go with these kids.